All right, students, this week we are going to review. Welcome back. We're going to review how to solve equations. We're going to start by one-step equations, then we're going to keep going to two-step equations, and then next week we're going to do multi-step equations. So with that, we are going to be using algebra to prove or find missing sides and angles. So we need to remember how to solve for equations to be able to get to that. Anyway, so let's start with one-step equations. So these are some examples of one-step equations. Remember that the opposite, we're going to be using the opposite operation. So to undo uh, an operation. So the opposite of division is multiplication. The opposite of multiplication is division. The opposite of addition is subtraction, and then the opposite of subtraction is addition. So if you add two numbers, if you subtract two numbers, then you get to the same spot. So that's exactly what we're doing. We're using inverse operations or opposite operations, like in this case. So to get rid of that plus 12, we're going and leave the variable alone. We're going to subtract 12 from both sides and get the value for m. So minus 12 on one side, minus 12 on the other side. 12 minus 12 is 0, and then you're left with m equals 10 minus 12. That is negative 2. That's the value for m. So if you put negative 2 here plus 12, it will give you 10. And that's how we check. All right, in this case, we add 9 on both sides. Remember, you are getting rid of the one that's with the letter because you want to leave that variable alone. So these are opposites of each other, so that's 0, they cancel. And then negative 2 plus 9, that is positive 7, and then that's the value for G. All right, so now what happens when you are multiplying? The opposite of multiplication is division. So you divide negative 7 to get rid of that negative 7. Negative 7 over negative 7 is 1, so that goes away. So that's y equals, and then you just use a calculator, 91 divided by 7. They become positive, they both are negatives. That would be 13. So positive 13. Why is it positive? Because a negative divided by a negative is a positive. All right, so what happens when the variable is up here? Well, that's 9 is dividing. The opposite of division is multiplication. So you multiply 9 on both sides to get rid of 9. 9 and then it becomes 9 divided by 9. That's 1, right? That goes away. And then A equals, and then negative 4 times 9, that's negative 36. And that's your answer. That means that negative 36 divided by 9, it equals negative 4. So that is correct. All right, so what happens when you have fractions? Well, the way we are going to get rid of that fraction is by multiplying by the reciprocal. So that means that I'm going to flip the fraction. That's the reciprocal. I'm going to flip that fraction and then multiply it on both sides. So that's a flip fraction. That's a fraction multiplied by its reciprocal, which it becomes 1. So that goes away on this side. So that's x equals. And then if I put a 1 underneath that 10, there are two fractions. You remember how to multiply fractions. You multiply numerators and then multiply denominators and then you divide. 10 times 3, that is 30. And 1 times 2, that is 2. So that's 30 divided by 2, which is 15. And that's your answer. Let's try it again. So you multiply by the reciprocal, which is the flip fraction. And 9 over 4. We put a 1 underneath. This goes away, and then W equals negative 8 times 9. That's negative 72 over 1 times 4. That is 4. And then you divide. Negative 72. So 72 divided by 4, it's 18. And then it's negative 18 because 1 is negative. All right, and that's how you do fractions. You just flip and use the reciprocal. All right, so what happens when you have multiple steps, like 2 steps? Let's do 2 steps. So it says solve a 2-step equation. First, you undo the addition and subtraction to remove the constant term, and then you undo the multiplication and division. So you start by addition and subtraction, and then you end multiplying or dividing, depending on what you need. Let's do that. But first it says, okay, get rid of that number without any letters. You have to combine like terms. Okay, so let's do that. So I'm going to, this is adding, so I'm going to subtract it from both sides. I want my variable alone, so I want this number alone. 8 minus 8, that is 0. 15 minus 8, that is 42. And then I still have that 6x, right? So now I don't need that 0 anymore, so that's 6x equals 42. And then this 6 is multiplying, so the opposite is dividing. I put a 7, I don't know why, and that's the answer. 6, and that cancels, and then x equals 42 divided by 6 is 7, and that is my answer. All right, let's try another one here. First, I'm going to get rid of that negative 5 by doing the opposite. So I'm going to add it to both sides to get rid of it. Then 2n equals 11 plus 5, that is 16. And then that is multiplying, so I'm going to divide by 2. That goes away, and then n equals 8. That's my answer. All right, let's try this one. So it looks like it's like, oh, the equal sign is on the other side. It's the same thing. So I'm going to subtract 9 from both sides. That goes away. Remember, I'm combining like terms, so I have to reduce it to be able to find the value for k. So that goes away, and then 13 minus 9, that is 4. And then that goes, and then negative 4k. And then I got to get rid of that negative 4 by dividing. And that goes away here, so that's k equals 4 divided by negative 4, it's negative 1, and that's my answer. Okay, all right, so what happens when you have a fraction here, something like that? Well, we're doing the same thing, so it's one more step though, it's 2 steps. All right, so first we add 7 on both sides. So that would be, that goes away, that's 7, and I have x over 2 equals 9 plus 7, that is 16. And then remember what I did when I was dividing, the opposite of multiplying. So I'm going to multiply on both sides. That goes away, and then x equals 16 times 2. That is 32. And that's my answer. Okay. When you have a fraction like this, remember minus 22 first. That goes away, and then I have 3 over 5x equals 28 minus 22, that is 6. And then I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal on both sides. That goes away, and then x equals, and then 6 times 5, that is 30. 1 times 3 is 3, and then 30 divided by 3 is 10, and that's my answer. All right, okay, let's do something like this. So it says examples below are different in that the multiplication division is done first, followed by the addition and subtraction. So what happens here that I gotta get rid of that 8 first before I move anything here. I cannot move anything if I don't get rid of that 8. That 8 is dividing. So the opposite of division is multiplication. So I'm gonna multiply it on both sides and get rid of it. So times 8 times 8. So that these two 8s, they cancel each other. One is up, one is down. I can cancel it. So I have x plus 11 on this side, and then negative 3 times 8, that's negative 24. And then it becomes a one-step equation. Minus 11, that goes away, and then x equals negative 24 minus 11 is negative 35. And that is my answer. Okay, same thing. Well, let's do this one. So I'm gonna get rid of that 9 because I gotta get rid of that one by multiplying because that's dividing. That goes away on this side. 9 times 4, that's 36, equals w plus 8. And then I get rid of that 8 by subtracting on both sides. That goes away. And then w equals 36 minus 8. That is 28. And that's my answer. And I hope this helps. I hope this is a review for everybody. And I hope this helps.